This is Amy Chan from CakeDecoratingSchool.com, and if you like cake decorating, you're in the right place. Welcome to our flower series. In this lesson, we'll be piping Buttercream dendrobium orchids. It's broken down into steps, so you can skip ahead, rewind, and rewatch as desired. We're going to make a couple of colors for our dendrobium orchid, and we're using American-style buttercream and the following liquid gel colors. We're going to use some sky blue, a touch of lemon yellow, some violet, and finally, some neon bright pink. To get started with, I'm going to make a lighter shade of pink, and I'm going to use some of that pink and violet, and I've got just a little bit out on the tray here, just to get us started, because it's not going to take a lot. So just a few little specks of my pink and a tiny one of that violet. Goal is to make a light color that kind of has a pink, lilac-y, kind of hyacinth feel to it. So I just want to go nice and light with this. So I can see that color in there just kind of starting to read. Just going to go in with the same ratio, tiny specks, until I get it kind of where I want it to be, but I don't want it to be too dark. Oh, that's looking nice. So you can see we have a nice soft shade of pink. It's got a little hint of that purple in there, making it kind of a cool tone pink. It's not too dark. It's maybe bordering on the edge of not being pastel anymore. And that's going to be a perfect spot for us. We're going to make a second shade of our pink. So same kind of ratio, but just darker. So more color in there. And I've got some more of my American style buttercream in there. And I'm just going to go heavier on that color application, but same kind of ratio. So we're looking to basically make a darker hue of the same color. And if I need to, I'll grab my bottle of pink and just squeeze out a little bit more. But this might be enough to do it. We'll see. I'm just not making that much color, so I want to make sure I'm really getting down in there, getting around the sides and the bottom of the bowl, especially to get any leftover streaks of food coloring that might be on the side of my container. And I'm feeling just a little bit purple, so I think I'm just going to add, open it up, a drop of my pink. Just because I want to make sure I'm in that nice bright pink range for this color. And it's getting where I want it to be, maybe just a little bit short. So I think just a little more of that pink will do it, because we've got quite a bit of purple in there. You can see it kind of has that tiny touch of a berry feel to the color. That's right where I want it to go. I think that's going to be lovely. So we have a more intense version of the first color that we made. And the final color we're going to make is going to be just a little bit of green. So we have something to pop out at the centers of our flowers. So for this, I'm going to use just a little bit of that sky, just a tiny touch. Some of our lemon yellow, I think more lemon than sky, and just teeny tiny speck of that purple, just very little. We want to make ourselves a nice bright color that has kind of a cool electric feel to it. And we don't need a lot for this because we're basically just making a tiny little detail in the center of our flowers with it. So it's looking nice, I think more yellow because it's feeling a little sea foam green in some places. So a little more yellow should brighten that up, make it a little more vibrant. And kind of pull that color in the direction we want it to go, which I think we're achieving. I just want to give it just a tiny touch of that purple. Just to kind of mute it tiny bit, make it just a little bit softer. There we go. That's a nice little green. We are going to use 4 bags for this flower. You can see they're all 12-inch disposable. You can use whatever kind you like. And we've used the following tips with each color. We've loaded up our green in a bag that is fitted with a number 3. We have another bag that we fitted with a 104 that you can see we've put our dark pink in, and we've used almost all of the dark pink. I've left a little bit to make a blended bag in my container. So you want to load this color up first out of all of your pinks. I have a mixed bag that's a blend of both my darker pink and my lighter pink that's fitted with a 104. And you can see I took just the residual amount, just a tiny bit of that darker pink that was left in my bowl, and I put a nice scoop of that lighter pink in there, and I blended them together loosely. So it's a very loose blend. You can still see the 2 different colors in the bag, and that should give us a nice effect on our petals. Our final bag is also using a number 104. And for this one, you can see I took a little bit of my lighter pink and I just blended it loosely with my white. So I used about half of that light pink with my dark pink to make my other blended bag, and I used the remaining half and just blended it with about an equal amount of white. And I just mixed them together lightly so you can still see both shades. Now we're going to review our techniques for our dendrobium orchids. For our petals, we've got a few different things going on. The first are some kind of leaf-shaped petals, so think long with little points at the end. And for these, I'm going to hold my bag at 45 degrees because I want to control how far that frosting comes out and how wide these end up being. If I lay it flatter, they're going to end up being a little fatter. So I want to go in at 45 degrees. Back of the bag's at 130, so pointing away from me, kind of towards the top of the nail. And I want to have that skinny end anchored into the center. And then when I come to the point, I'm going to rock the back of the bag. So think it starts out at 130, and as I come to make a point, I'm going to take it over to 3, and that's going to allow me to get in there and create a little point at the end. And then when I go back, I'm going to pull back the other way, and I'm just going to spin my nail a little bit. So I'll kind of hold the bag at 3 coming back towards myself, and rather than twist a little more because it's a little awkward and you kind of get your elbow into your side if you're trying to pull it back even more, you just want to rotate that nail a little bit as you come to finish. And that should give us a nice little leaf-shaped petal that's fat at the base and pointed at the end. For our oval, we're going to have the fat end anchored, skinny end pointing out. Our back of the bag is going to be off towards 3 o'clock when we're piping. And we are going to pull out just a little bit, and then we're going to spin our nail and pull back. And that is going to give us a nice little shape to these, where we have kind of a little angle here to that kind of base of the petal. It extends a little bit before it curves, so it kind of has an elongated oval shape. So rather than when we do little round petals where we just kind of fix that end and spin and give us a nice kind of circular edge there, we want to extend this middle part of the petal and give it just a little bit of extra length. So for the little kind of trumpets on these, for lack of a better word to call them, I'm going to make something that's kind of U-shaped. So we're going to start out with the bag upright. So kind of really touching the surface of our flower right there in the middle. And as we start to pipe, we're not going to pull the bag in any direction. We're simply going to rock it. So we're going to make kind of a little connected rainbow of frosting and keep that back end stable and affixed right there. And I'm going to twist my hand just a little bit. So from the opening being upright, I'm just going to twist out a tiny bit, and then I'm going to spin my nail, right? And that's going to give us a nice U shape that's kind of opened out and kind of looks like a big, maybe fat bottom lip, sort of, right? Until we spin back around, so we're kind of facing the other direction. And then we're going to take the bag and pull towards us and go back to upright, and that's going to kind of end it. So we're going to end up with this kind of little U-shaped kind of lip there at the bottom. And I can't really do this on the tray, so we'll go through it again on the nail, but I just wanted to go through it here, especially because it's an unusual motion. So we're going to start upright, and we're going to leave that back end fixed to that kind of flower, and then we're going to spin, and then we're going to go back to upright to pull away. And that's going to give us a nice little U-shaped lip there at the bottom. We're also going to make some little upright wedges. So for these, we want the bag at 45 degrees. The tip opening is going to be pointing straight up for us, and we're just going to slide like so. So that's going to give us a nice little wedge or kind of fan that's almost on its side and pointing straight up for us. We're also going to utilize some supports in this, and they're just going to be little fans or flat lines. So we're just going to use our 104 tip just to kind of fill in some of the empty spaces between petals and give support to the ones that we're going to pipe on top. And finally, for our centers, we're going to do kind of a little backwards shell. And I like doing these last, so I'm going to pull from the center really skinny and get fatter towards the end. To finish it, I'm just going to stop piping and squeeze back on itself. So it's essentially piping a shell or a teardrop in reverse. We've reviewed our techniques, so now let's go over how we're going to put these together to actually build our blossom. We're going to be making our dendrobium orchids, and we want to kind of keep the orientation of the petals in mind. So we're doing 3 of those skinny petals to start with, and I want to think of them almost like a T shape, where if I look at the general line of where the points go at the bottom and the one at the top, because there's going to be 3 of them, it feels a bit like a T. I don't want it to feel more like a peace sign where those points would be down here, and it would give an overall circular feel. So I want to start by piping the one in the center and the other 2 almost directly out to the side. So not completely, just slightly angled down. And I find it helpful to draw a little T and then mark my center above it on my paper and flip it over, just to kind of give me a nice little guide so I don't get too off on that spacing, because I feel like the spacing of those first 3 petals is the most important thing. Kind of sets you up for success for the rest of your flower. We're going to pipe those 3 leaf-shaped petals with our 104 tip. So we'll start just a little bit above where we want that bottom line to be for those bottom 2 petals. Do that first one and then pull the other 2. You can do whatever side you want to first, coming out there to the sides, and that should set us up nicely. Once we do that, we're going to pipe support fans underneath where our ovals will go in between that top petal and the two side ones. So just right in those gaps, right there and right there. And that's just gonna help connect the whole flower together a little more and give you a little more stability. So that way, after they're chilled, when you're going to move them, there's stuff under those petals connecting everything together that should be nice and firm and helping to make a nice stable flower for you. Once we get those support fans in there, we're gonna pipe our oval petals. So just kind of starting right there in that little middle, pull out, go on top. I like to leave these little side petals just a little bit longer than my ovals. So just get them right in there in between those spaces, help to connect everything together, do one and then the other. And then we're going to switch to our bag for our trumpet, and that's going to be our bag with the darker color in it. And I'm going to start right on the base of those oval petals. Just line that 104 tip up and rock it back, spin around, and then trail off. And it might have a little bit of a where everything is kind of mixing together there in the center. That's fine. We're then going to do those little upright wedges right on top of that. So if the start and end of this is a little bit wonky or you don't really like how it's going, don't worry about it too much because we'll end up covering it up with those and it's going to look gorgeous. Then I'll come in with my number 3, get right in between there, all those details for the tail, and pipe that little kind of reverse shell or teardrop in there, and that'll give us a nice little pop of green just to kind of help finish things off and add a tiny touch of detail to our flowers. To get started on piping, I've got my 3-inch flower nail. I've got my parchment paper attached to my nail with a little buttercream, and I've marked myself a little template here. And so you can easily see what I've done. I've drawn basically just an upside down T, and then I've marked a little dot that is just about the opening of the tip. So I just lined up my 104 tip to judge the spacing and put a little dot right there. And that's going to line us up for the center point of our flower, which as you can see is not really in the center of our nail. It's a little lower down. And this is going to give us the overall orientation of our flower. To start piping, we've got our lightest bag, so the one that's our light pink and white mixed together. We're going to start with the fat end anchored towards that dot we made there on our template. Skinny end is out, back of the bag is towards 130, and we're at a 45-degree angle, and we are just going to pull up right along that line and then rock the back end of our bag over to 3, and then we're going to pull back. And you can see, just spin our nail to finish. Beautiful. So now I'm going to twist a little bit, and it's going to look kind of odd, but you can see now when I start here, I'm pulling straight out to that point on the end of that top of that T. And I'm going to do the same thing that I've done before, right there, just pulling out here. So rock the end of my bag, turn, and pull back. And then repeat on the other side. So orient so that dot is in kind of the center for you, and that point on the end of that T is lined up right there at the top. Rotate the back end of my bag, and then spin the nail to finish back. And you can see now we have 3 petals. We've got some great spacing and we've got good orientation. That center one goes straight up. The other 2 kind of make the crossbar of an upside down T when lined up down there. Now we're going to pipe our little supports. So I'm just going to go right here in between my petals with my 104, just any way that allows you to get right in there next to them. Just kind of think about joining those petals together a little bit. We're going to pipe our ovals on top, so we're not going to see them. So just hold the bag any way you need to, and if you touch your petals a little bit, don't worry. The more touching you do, the better, because that means that they're all going to be connected and you'll end up with a nice stable flower. Now we're going to pipe our ovals. So we have our blended bag that has the 2 pinks in it, and I've got my first set of petals and my supports down there, so we're ready to go. Back of the bag is towards 3 o'clock, so I'm just going to turn my nail so that I've got that support wedge kind of lined up where I'm going to start piping. And I'm going to use that as a guide for where to start. So I'm going to fix the back end of the bag right there close to the center, just a little bit up from it. So just tiniest little bit, maybe like a 1/16 of an inch, so barely there. I'm just leaving a little room in the middle for that trumpet because all these things are going to kind of line up together. And I just want to pull out a little bit and then rotate and then pull back. Now we're going to do the other one on the other side. So same kind of area, same orientation. So just a little bit away from that center. So we're leaving space for that trumpet. Pull out a tiny bit, rotate so you get a nice round curve. And you can see I'm not really moving too much. And then pull it back to the center to finish. And you can see those blended colors give us a slightly darker shade for those two oval-shaped petals. Now we're getting to our trumpet. So you can see we left ourselves kind of a little gap between those two ovals. We've got just a tiny space in there, and we're going to go and start right in between there. So I'm going to line almost the top of this tip up with the base of the one petal over here on my right side. And I'm going to start in that upright position. And as I squeeze, I'm going to pull back towards myself, then make sure I'm angled out just a little bit before I spin and pull back. So, a little hard to do this slow, but I'm going to try my best. So we're going to rainbow out, make sure I'm angled out, and then spin. So get in there nice and big as you want it to be, and then pull up to finish. And you can see that makes a little kind of teardrop shaped loop for you. We're going to use that same bag, our 104 with our darkest color, and we're going to do our little wedges. And just turn your nail however you need to get in there. And we're going to go right on top of the connection between everything. So if it's a little awkward any place or a little unfinished, just go in there and do those cute little wedges. And that's going to give it that nice little look, like there's all these little delicate petals kind of blossoming out there in the center. And finally, we're going to finish it off with a little bit of that reverse teardrop. So I just want to start in here at the center, make a nice line, and as I go, get just a little bit thicker and then pull back on itself. And that should allow you to really just nestle that down in there without disturbing any of your previous work. And there we have a beautiful dendrobium style orchid in some beautiful soft colors. And these come in a wild array of colors, so you can change it up and mix it up and use the same technique to make a lot of different blossoms for yourself. That's all for this lesson on dendrobiums. If you'd like to, try giving our lesson on regular orchids a try. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like more about the cake decorating materials and equipment we use, or just some inspirational videos about cake decorating itself, you can follow us on Insta or YouTube at Cake Decorating School. If you'd like to know more about yearly membership and what it entails, you can go to www.cakedecoratingschool.com for more information. And if you're interested in these products, you can check the links in the description.